Systemic Christian theology begins with an axiom. Before any debate over historical timelines or scientific mechanisms occurs, the framework requires a foundational premise to anchor every subsequent idea. The opening claim of Genesis provides that anchor. By stating that God created the heavens and the earth, Scripture establishes that reality is neither self-originating nor self-governing. Human-centric worldviews often reduce the cosmos to a mathematical accident, an impersonal force, or the fallout of endless cosmic conflict. The biblical record counters with divine initiative, a universe existing because a living mind deliberately called it into being. For Seventh-day Adventist theology, this sequence is the load-bearing grammar of the faith. Look at this dependency graph. At the center sits the central node, the act of creation. Every other doctrine derives its validity from this starting point. If God is the architect, human identity is a design outcome rather than a biological coincidence. Moral accountability is tethered here as well. The Creator holds the authority to dictate the parameters of right and wrong for the system he engineered. Ecology and environmental stewardship draw their logic from the structure. The material world demands respect because it remains the active property of the Maker. Even eschatology, the promised restoration of all things, is bound to this original framework. The destination of history only has meaning because its origin had intent. The biblical account of origins functions as the internal logic for the rest of the Christian story. To understand the Adventist perspective on the future, we must first examine the specific mechanics of the beginning. Recognizing that the universe was designed requires us to examine the identity of the designer. Scripture assigns the act of creation to a triune architect. The Father serves as the source of all things, the Spirit organizes the formless deep, and the Son operates as the active agent executing the design. This yields a Christological conclusion. Jesus is the pre-incarnate creator, entering a physical world he personally authored. This dictates salvation's mechanics. The hands on the cross belong to the entity that spoke the cosmos into existence. The Redeemer and Creator are one. Theological models sometimes characterize salvation as a third-party intervention, a rescue mission performed by an outside contractor applying a patch to a broken system. The biblical model defines redemption as new creation. It is an internal repair mechanism, executed by the original architect to reclaim his property. The cross is the architect absorbing systemic rebellion's consequences. The resurrection is the architect reinitiating the original sequence. If Christ is not the literal creator, the cross loses the systemic authority required to physically restore the world. The output of the initial creation week involved the careful organization of space and matter, but the architect ordered an additional dimension. As we see in this chronological mapping, God structured the dimension of time itself. The sequence numbers physical activity from days 1 through 6. At step 7, the sequence alters. The creation of physical space stops, and a boundary is established in time. This seventh day is the Sabbath. It is a perpetual memorial woven into the architecture of existence, establishing a 7-day cycle independent of astronomical movement. The Creator ceases activity on this day to signify completion and systemic perfection. An omnipotent God does not require rest to recover from exhaustion. For humanity, this boundary functions as a weekly reset. It interrupts the illusion that human autonomy, labor, or economic productivity are what sustain life. It also acts as a covenant sign. The boundary points backward to a completed physical creation and forward to the completed work of redemption. By resting, humanity confesses their existence is a received gift from the architect, not a status they achieved themselves. The Genesis account reaches its climax with the engineering of human life. This design grants dignity to every human being. It overrides human-constructed value systems based on economic utility, social standing, or physical capability. Adventist theology insists on holistic anthropology. The human profile is constructed by fusing the dust of the ground with the breath of life into an indivisible entity. Embodied physical life is essential, rejecting dualisms that treat the body as a temporary container. Built into this physical design is humanity's operational role within the created order, dominion. In this hierarchy, dominion is not unrestricted exploitation. Absolute ownership remains at the top node with the Creator. Humanity operates underneath, authorized for delegated stewardship. The responsibility to cultivate and protect the earth flows from this restricted line of authority. To abuse the environment or the physical body is to misuse what belongs to God. Care for creation is a functional requirement of stewardship. The original harmony established in Genesis is visibly broken in the modern world. Sin is an alien intruder. As this disruption illustrates, rebellion distorts the pathways of relationship, labor, and ecology, but it is not the original substance of existence. This distortion forms the basis of what Adventist theology identifies as the Great Controversy. The initial rebellion in Eden was a dispute over jurisdiction. It questioned the Creator's right to define reality, dictate goodness, and establish moral boundaries. All observable suffering, physical decay, and death are symptoms of this distortion. By defining sin as an intruder, the theology preserves the goodness of God's original, material design. The Creator did not author chaos. Redemption is necessary because the original design is damaged. It remains possible because the architect has not abandoned his work. The origin of the framework dictates its eschatological climax. This side-by-side comparison of Genesis chapter 2 and Revelation chapter 14 reveals lexical symmetry. The doctrine of creation is the specific language used to describe the final cosmic crisis. The first angel's message in Revelation calls humanity to worship the Maker of heaven and earth. The final gospel proclamation centers on acknowledging Creator authority. In this final conflict, the Sabbath acts as the test of allegiance. It forces a weekly, visible compliance with the original Genesis architecture, answering the question of who holds jurisdiction. The Great Controversy resolves with the fulfillment of the architect's initial intent, when new earth. The overarching biblical narrative tracks a precise trajectory. It moves from creation, through the fall, and terminates in a literal recreation. A common misconception positions the Christian afterlife as an ethereal escape from physical reality. The text contradicts this. The new earth is a bodily restoration of the original material design. The river of life, the tree of life, and the physical presence of God echo the conditions of Eden. True creation faith requires action in the present. It involves living as a delegated steward of the material world, honoring the architecture of time, and operating with the certainty that the Creator, Redeemer, will physically restore His original design.